Good morning and welcome to the Bayou Progressive. I'm Quentin Anthony Anderson, and today we are thrilled to have a conversation with one of Louisiana's most fearless progressive voices in the State House, State Representative Mandie Landry out of New Orleans. Representative Landry, you've been quite busy at the outset of this year's legislative session, pushing bold reforms like capping tax collection fees for our schools, regulating AI in elections to protect our democracy, and even advocating for fortified roofs on new builds to make housing more resilient and affordable in the face of our worsening storms. As we dive into the challenges and opportunities facing Louisiana Democrats in the legislature, from Governor Landry's push for judicial overhauls to expanding school vouchers, thanks for joining us to break it all down. So let's get started. Now that the session is underway, what do you see is the real fight for the legislative session? Not the branding, not the press release version, but the fight that will actually define whether this session helped or hurt average Louisianans.
That's a very good question, actually, because some of what I've been saying in interviews is that it seems kind of quiet. I mean, there's some funky bills about renaming or naming something the Donald Trump Expressway, and there's always a handful of gun and social issues that pop up here and there. But from what it seems that everyone knows this is it before election year. And so you see a lot of like workhorse bills. You see issues that are being discussed like tax cuts. A lot of other senators and Republicans saying, not this year. Like we need the money. I feel like we're seeing actually some stepping back from some of this stuff. There is, of course, the governor, like he had in his speech. There's always a big push against New Orleans because that's very political and easy for them, and all the same things over and over again. But it's not the goals of the session, at least from the governor and the Republican majority, do not seem to be what they have been the past few years. And frankly, it's because they won so many battles.
Well, that's kind of depressing a little bit, but
I know.
I guess to kind of go back to the point that you were making, that everybody kind of, there's an awareness that next year is an election year. Do you feel like people are filing bills with the intent to pass, or with the intent to be able to say, hey, I filed this bill?
I mean, that's all the time.
Yeah.
That's regular. I guess I mean more that people are aware, like we need, you need to bring some money back home. It's a little different for New Orleans because our money goes citywide generally. They need to bring money back home. They need to do those, those little things that maybe they promise people. My bills are even a lot more practical, but part of that is just the atmosphere I'm in up there. That we're just kind of trying to make sure we get things through. It's a very strange place so far to be this year. It started off kind of quietly, I just have to say.
Okay, so let's actually touch on some of the bills that you're pushing this session. So what is the
Mhm.
through line in your agenda this year? Because on paper, it kind of touches on everything. It goes from consumer protection to criminal justice to healthcare to AI. What problem are you actually trying to solve in this particular session? And what do you feel like maybe the legislature isn't taking seriously enough relative to what you've introduced this year?
It probably about 80% of what I filed, I call protection bills.
Hmm.
And you hit the nail on a lot of consumer protection, and then a lot of whether it's victims or incarcerated women or incarcerated people in general. It's sort of a protection angle. So there's quite a few bills about people incarcerated, such as expanding degrees and certificates that will give them good time. For victims, we're expanding the use of facility dogs that you usually see with children. We gosh, I have so many criminal bills. We are trying to prevent people who owe fines and fees from being referred to credit agencies, because then people just end up in a spiral
Hmm.
of debt. On the consumer side, I'm working on AI and chatbots, that they have to tell you that it's a chatbot, AI disclosures in political campaigns, transparency in hospital billing, which is a federal requirement, and some of our state hospitals are not abiding by it. I have 23 bills, I think, and
Jeez.
probably about I know it's way too many. Maybe 17 or 18 fit into that category, kind of.
Okay,
Just
so
looking out for all of us little guys,
hey,
you know?
I appreciate it. So so let me nail you down on this. If only one of your bills had to become law this session, which one would you choose and why?
Oh,
And
come
this
on,
isn't
don't
about
make me pick.
it's like picking your favorite kids, this isn't the same thing as realistically which bill will pass. If in a perfect world,
Mm,
only one, and this wouldn't be a perfect world because all of your bills would pass, but in a less than perfect world, but one in which one of your bills absolutely passes, largely as written, which one would it be and why?
um, the hospital, the price transparency, probably. It just touches everyone, and more people, including my aide last year, started bugging me like, can we do something about this? She got a huge bill even though she has insurance and didn't know what it was. And it's not going to solve all problems, but everyone has experienced those. You get those bills and you don't know why you got it or can't understand it. And there's federal Trump administration laws now about transparency and putting it out there how much something costs and all the hidden fees in it. And our hospitals here are supposed to abide by all of it, and a lot of them don't. And I think that it could make passing that could make a difference, and also put the providers on notice and put individuals on notice that they can force their providers to provide them with the complete transparent information.
Do you think that'll save consumers money? Do you think that there are a lot of fees that once sort of
Yeah.
provided and you're transparent about could easily either be avoided, eliminated, or might even be sort of superfluous?
Yeah, especially on larger ticket items. I mean, think of your planning. Like I had to get a small procedure last year and I needed it the year before. I waited until January so my HSA
Mm,
would fill up again. And so there's people, with children, or you might need to have knee surgery or something like that. The larger items in particular, I think it will help them to, I hate to say shop around for medical care, but
mm.
to compare prices. On an everyday level, am I going to go look every time I go get, my annual exam? Probably not. But for larger bills, I think they will, and I think overall it'll remind people. Thank you so much. That kind of push back on their providers and for the hospitals and all that to make things simpler.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
They
agree.
can do that. And similar to that, so that's the mama bill, and then I have her two babies about hidden fees, and one is hidden fees in real estate transactions very specifically. Um, because you pay the background check and you go through the whole process and you go to sign it, and then there's all this different stuff. And then the other one is about hidden fees and a lot of different consumer areas, and that's going to be a little more difficult because everyone's going to want to carve out. But you need to tell people what they're paying for and not wait until the last minute. Have you bought a car recently?
I literally bought one this week.
Mm.
Yeah.
I had to in August. Yeah, you negotiate a price, which I hate. Just give me the price. And I go sit down and I'm like, what is that? What is this $1,500? Oh, that's something they make us charge everyone. I'm like, no, no, no. But literally,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You sat down and it was like thousands more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's one of those annoyances where you're like, I have the amount for the car, and then it's like, I just have to mentally remind myself that there are thousands of dollars extra that I need to also have set
Utter
aside.
nonsense. Oh, like paint paint protection for the life of the vehicle. I'm like, I hope I don't still have this car when it needs paint. Like, if it needs paint, that means I got in an accident. Anyway,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. And well, at least you bought yours. Last year I bought mine right as gas was going up 55 cents. So, I sure know how to pick good timing. As a follow-up to that, what do you expect the fight? What do you expect to fight the bills? Who do you expect to fight the bills the hardest, particularly on the sort of consumer protection, price transparency bills?
I mean, it depends on each one, but general sort of business industry. I mean, the hospital association and others are going to claim, oh, we don't need to do this. But like the real estate industry, whenever you have something in, whether it's buying, selling, renting, they all claim that they're agents and their people don't do any of this. So why do we need it? They, no business, and I use the word business very generally, wants any more regulation on them. I mean, I get that from their perspective, but you do have plenty of bad actors. And if you're doing the right thing, what do you care? So
Yeah.
they always push back. Law B, who you may be familiar with, seems to be, I don't know, seems to be weakening a little bit. I need to write down a note to look into them.
Don't get me excited about that.
You
Give
know,
me hope.
I had 2 conversations about them this week with different people brought it up. And they were such a huge force my first term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it was Wagasback was still there. He was still very powerful. And they were like the business check against John Bel Edwards. And now Jeff Landry's in the governor's position. And so there's, I wouldn't say there's not a need for them, but not in the same way. And so I haven't heard much out of them.
Yeah, yeah. I've always one of the more superficial observations I've made sometimes about how lobbies legislators and how sometimes interests on the left or center left do it, and sometimes it's very basic. They're just more engaging. Their engagement is more fun. It's more, sometimes when advocates on the left are advocating legislators, we're doing it for the right reasons, and we're having you attend, seminars, and we're teaching you stuff, and the oil and gas people will just throw a party. They'll have, Flo Rida and Pitbull at a reception, and all of a sudden you see legislators that you thought were good on oil and gas showing up at that party because it's just a good time. And it's one of the things that sometimes I tell people on our side, which is there's a balance here where, like, yeah, a lot of these folks might care about your issue, but there's also the appeal of, like, what does it feel like to engage with the folks that are advocating on behalf of your issue? If it feels like doing homework, if it feels like pulling teeth, sometimes you're going to have a little bit less effectiveness in terms of your engagement versus some of these people that, yeah, they just show up with, a stack of pizzas and a mixtape, and then kind of slide in that they need, this and this on this bill. That sometimes some balancing the performative with the substance is something that we sometimes struggle with, because lobby really will just throw a party and have every legislator there, and they'll build the relationships that way.
I don't really agree with that. I
Okay.
don't, they're not getting votes or bills passed just by throwing a reception.
Yeah.
Those things happen,
Yeah.
to keep putting yourself in front of people, like, of course, but they're getting votes because they're helping get those people elected.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I think in terms of
Um,
like the relationship building, I think that they prioritize some of the superficial more than our side does, and
I mean,
sometimes
they're
to
just
our
around
detriment.
a lot. Yeah, they're around a lot.
Yeah.
They have money to throw around to have like a happy hour.
Hmm.
They operate more like that, the sort of golf country club side
That's
kind of
right. That's
does.
right. Yeah.
And I mean, because they're more homogeneous,
Yeah.
and
Very true.
that's
Very
how
true.
they
Very, very,
operate.
very, very
Try to
true.
throw a party on the left, and I'm like, I don't know where to start with this. Like, I don't know where to go, who to invite, what to happen.
You're exactly
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So you're right about that. And it's a lot of people who kind of already have like kind of similar background. I mean, I've kind of been trying to make myself go to more events like this because I didn't do anything at the beginning because it's very hard to be around some of those people. And so I'll
Hmm.
kind of pick ones that I know are going to be a little a little more casual. Like I went this week, the District Attorneys Association
Hmm.
had like a little barbecue thing. And so I went to that because I've worked with a bunch of them on bills.
No.
They're public servants, elected like me, fair amount of Democrats, they had their staff versus like the lobby event or the MOGA, one of the big oil and gas ones, the
Hmm.
first 2 nights. I'm like, I'm gonna skip that one. I don't need to go to that one. But they have lots of events,
Yeah.
the industries that lobby just are able to do dinners and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, I'll go to 1 or 2 a year, but some people
Yeah.
go to dinner
Oh, I
every
know.
night,
I look. Food,
every night.
food is a big draw. When I was in law school, and none of us thought about it at the time, but the Federalist Society meetings always had the most people because they always had food. And if you went to the Pills meeting, maybe they had food, maybe they didn't. And so you'd have a lot of, future liberals that were at the Federalist Society meetings because they had good pizza. So,
Yeah, you got to eat.
so
And
I'm,
I don't,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, but some of it is it's food. It's also where you are in life. So
Mhm.
I have work to do later in the night. I also have other friends in Baton Rouge, and at the end of the day, I don't need to spend 14 hours with the same people day in day out. And some of these people, they're retired,
Mhm.
or they kind of operate in this world, and this is all, this is fun. Like, that's a normal day for them, to spend the whole day at the Capitol and then go to dinner with the same people. And I mean, good for them. I'll do it more like, I'm like, do I really like this lobbyist or this committee? Because some of the lobbyists are around my age and are lawyers,
Mhm.
so like
Mhm.
I'm decently friends with. Um, and some of them I'm like, no, no, you're not going to get me there tonight.
Do you
But
feel
yeah,
like you
some
have to?
people go to dinner every night.
Do you feel
But
like you have to turn on like being Representative Mandy? Like, do you feel like it's a turning it on and then turning it off?
um, I mean, it's different in every scenario. I had a town hall a week ago, and when I do stuff at home, presenting a certain way, but the audience is different. Am I talking to college students? Am
Mhm.
I talking to the Lower Garden District? Am I talking to a bunch? Um, these sort of smaller settings, I more have to watch myself and turn it on. I have to make sure I'm not just talking too much. I kind of have to watch myself in a group that I'm not maybe too casual for some of them. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of settings that, I mean, I have to be prepared,
Yeah.
very prepared, more than most people, because some of them would love nothing more than to trip me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I don't, I mean, sometimes I just have to say, I don't know the answer to that, which is strange. But
Well, I mean,
I
you've
can't like
kind of
be
built your
caught
political
wrong.
you've built your
Yeah.
political identity on being, prepared and informed and being kind of on it,
Sometimes I just
right?
don't know. I don't want to be proven wrong. I just want to say I don't know.
I appreciate that. One last thing about the legislative session and just kind of
Mhm.
your approach, and then we'll kind of get to some bigger sort of political, broader political things. What is because you kind of got me curious about this when you were talking about like how you would prioritize bills. What is your approach to shepherding a bill to to passage? I once worked with a legislator out in Illinois, and her approach was she needed zero opposition. So she'd get everybody in the room, no matter who it was, and everybody had to agree. So these would be very watered down bills, but they'd kind of get passed. And sometimes they'd be as simple as like, they would get they would be really substantive at the beginning, and by the end of it, we had just renamed a building, but that was how you got everybody to zero. What is your approach to sort of shepherding a bill to passage, especially in this environment?
Um, it varies,
Okay.
which is one reason why I like to have more bills, because something that seems so simple and straightforward, it's just doing this one thing. There's some industry that's mad about it, or I'm literally going to the table and someone's like, I have an amendment, and it like guts the whole thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
so rarely will you start with something that you think is simple and get it through. I'm doing better with reaching out as early as I can on some of these. Sometimes I just don't have time. Like, there was a bunch of things I had to just file because I was getting close to the minute. So the more preparation, the better. Get any amendments or anything they want revised before I even file it is always good. Keeping up with people, thinking about who might oppose it or who could support it. My fortified roof bill, I'm working with a constituent actually who does that kind of work. And I love when someone else can do a lot of the work, because he's lining up people to testify,
Mhm.
and he's helping me with some opposition, and he knows the subject very well. So something came up from this group, I sent to him, and he's like, that's BS because of blah, blah, things I don't even know about. And so having someone who is really knowledgeable in a field and who can gather witnesses is super helpful. I don't know if I would have done that bill without him,
Mm.
because it was very technical. And so that's one answer, that on very technical bills, if somebody isn't taking the lead on it, who really knows it, I'm probably not going to do it.
Okay.
There's also your bills to, like, you need to keep conversations started, gun bills. I have a couple bills about those crisis pregnancy centers, which are garbage. I don't know if they'll pass, but we need to keep stuff like that in conversation so that people know we're trying, and also so that the other side knows that we're watching and that we don't agree with everything. So you have to do stuff. I say you, not everyone does stuff like that. Some people just want to win column, and then they file 5 license plate bills. I mean, you can have 100 wins and pass nothing but, bike lanes and license plates. Congratulations on your wins.
Yeah.
I hate
Oh,
that. The percentage passed. I'm like, this is garbage.
well, I mean, I think when you particularly get used to being in the super minority, you start to lower your expectations sometimes. You know, uh,
Yeah. The win-loss thing, though, it's a very dude thing.
is it?
And so highest percentage of bills passed. I'm like, one of those was like recreating the Department of Education or something. Like stuff like, come on.
I
Okay.
always think about them because the way I see them sometimes is I'll see them in the mailer that gets sent to constituents, just about,
Mhm.
not even bills passed. It's usually just, that they, filed this, and they'll paint it
Yeah.
as success. And you kind of look and you're like, wait, hold on. If this thing had passed, my life would be very different. You just filed this. So yeah, no, I certainly understand that. Okay, I said last question on the legislative session. I am curious about your AI bill, though. You filed a bill on consumer protections regarding automated systems and AI. Um, Broadly, what do you think that the legislature doesn't get, and sort of just Louisiana policymakers, sort of at the highest levels, don't get yet about AI in terms of what its impact will be on the workforce here? Obviously, you have the conversation about the data centers in North Louisiana. What do you think Louisiana policymakers aren't getting right now about AI and sort of the next couple years of what it might mean for Louisiana?
Well, our legislature trends older. Like, I'm on the younger-ish side, not young. Um, I think they, and me a little bit, don't quite see how far it can go. Like, it seems like this like fun, little tool, and not realizing, like you said, like workforce, like how it can affect the workforce, probably more negative than positive. Um, the bills we're having, though, are showing that some people are starting to realize it. Like, there's two about AI use in the healthcare industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's getting people's attention out there. I think there's another chatbot bill. I mean, we're not going to be able to keep up with, like, no government can keep up with this. The federal government can't either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as usual, my colleagues are slow to come around to realize, no, this is something that can affect all of society, not just like a fun computer thing. And it's not just one thing. It's not just healthcare. It's not just politics. It's not just this. It's going to be everywhere. And can we regulate it, and to what degree? I mean, every state and the feds are trying to figure that out right now.
And I think that the balance is, I think you make a good point. The balance is really important because there are so many things that it could, you know, bring about that are positive. I in my mind, I have no doubt that probably AI is going to be one of the reasons why we cure cancer, right? But it also could very well wipe out entire workforces, and there's not really an answer for, because the difference between AI and other changes is that
Right.
usually other economic changes then create new opportunities. So there are no more shoe cobblers, but there are other jobs that have sort of
Right.
arisen. With
Right. It's
AI,
just,
it takes your job and then takes every job that flows from it as well.
yeah. And like you said, like shoe cobbler and all, like that happens. You're always going to have like a generation behind, kind of.
Hmm.
I mean, we're also seeing it with like industry. Like, it's not coming back, guys. Like we need to move on from that. But what are we replacing it with? And over time, it seems like, you have the typewriter industry, like you said, is gone, and then it's the computer industry, and then it's, I have
Yeah.
the world in my hand right now,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, That's insane to think. I didn't have a computer till college. But AI is something that, are we also going to lose control of it?
Yeah.
Because if we put too much trust in this thing without enough oversight, I mean, right now I use my computer. I tell it what to do
Hmm.
when I understand it. But then AI is like it telling us what to do more and more. And that's what's a little concerning. I'm a lawyer and I'm of the vintage that's just a little too old to feel comfortable with using it very well. I mean, some of my
Yeah.
colleagues do who are older than me, but I put a research question into it recently. So let me see, because I couldn't find the answer,
Yeah.
or I couldn't find what I was looking for. And it came back with a few cases and the descriptions were spot on. I'm like, I could have written that. That's great. And so I go look up the cases and they were like hilariously wrong. Like it was totally not
Yeah.
what it said. Like I laughed at it. It was so bad. And I said, that's all I needed to see. And people will lose their bar license. On the other hand, you can do things so much faster, and
Yeah.
90% of the time, probably it's fine.
And
Like
I think
it's really fine.
that's the concern, is that for a lot of, particularly for a lot of employers, okay, does it get things wrong sometimes? Sure, but if I'm getting 80% of the productivity I got from a human from this machine, I'll take that because this is as bad as it will ever be, and every day moving forward it'll always get better. And I think that's the, where's that threshold where most employers are like, it's good enough, all right, I can fire John because it's good enough. And I think that's where a
Yeah,
lot of people kind of are worried about.
yeah. And you have, you build in, like any business, you're gonna have a huge mistake every now and then.
Mhm.
Like insurance or whatever, you have to pay out sometimes. But over the course of it, is it still a win? And I don't know. I don't know. I guess to me, like the unforeseen negatives, I would always be worrying about it. Like if I had used those cases,
Oh yeah.
well, I couldn't. I have too much anxiety over it. But I mean,
Yeah.
is it worth it to potentially lose my bar license to have a few pretty looking cases in there, or get fired or anything?
Well, here's hoping that we don't have a Supreme Court justice who decides just to very quickly generate their opinion and cite cases that never existed. That'd be pretty embarrassing. But I could tell you which Supreme Court justice it probably would be.
Who do you think?
Uncle Clarence Thomas.
You think?
No, I think he's probably aged out, but I think if he was 20 years younger, I think he probably phoned it in. I think he phoned it
Like
in.
a Kavanaugh, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I guess Kavanaugh and Barrett are kind of in the age group where they probably play around with it. They probably play around
Maybe,
with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more just the little local ones who don't know
Yeah.
what's going on and don't want to bother to
And
go
that's my
relearn the
concern.
law.
Like when you have, especially some of these older, not just even judges, but older legislators who hear about the technology. Because I know with my mom, sometimes I'll tell her about a chat bot, and she'll trust it because it's good, it looks good, and she won't do the due diligence because she doesn't know to do the due diligence. And so I do sometimes worry that that is going to kind of creep in. I know I don't have you for much longer, so I wanted to touch on a couple broader political topics. So. Uh, let's kind of talk about the elephant in the room legislatively, which is that Democrats are in the super minority in the legislature, and Republicans hold every statewide office. How do you and your Democratic colleagues wield power or influence effectively in this environment, or do you? How do you negotiate? How do you play defense in this environment without getting steamrolled?
I mean, the last couple of years, I've kind of just been rattling around on my own.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Seeing what I can pass, what I can do. There's just not a lot of backup. People have things they need to do. A lot of my colleagues from other parts of the state, their main function there is to get money to bring back home,
Mhm.
which is very different than some of us. I mean, we have to, New Orleans as a whole needs bu- big buckets of money for things, but that generally goes through a lot of other people. So I've gotten to know some people in the governor's office. I've, been more have to work more with, like, if there's a chair of the committee where I have a few bills, just kind of going through them, like just asking questions like, who's not going to like this? I might not even
Mhm.
know. Um, that's kind of how I've been doing it. I mean, I feel like that's probably similar for others. The past 2 years, we had Matt Willard, who
Mhm.
was our caucus chair, and so it was there's a handful of things, especially like tax bills and whatnot, that he worked and was able to get us to hold together, whether it's hold together, vote against it, hold together to amend it in a way that we wanted to. But there was only a handful of times that we're able to do it. And it's only when they're weak on the other side. And sometimes they are. I mean, they have a 3 vote majority. So they, super majority. So they have to have everyone there
Mhm.
and they have to have everyone in agreement. And sometimes those people are like, I'm not coming in today. On the other hand, I saw 2 people, one Republican and one Democrat, at the end of the tax session who were having severe health issues, and the governor dragged them in to vote on the bill. It was pretty surprising.
Jesus.
I know. It was, yeah. One of them had been in the hospital, whatever. But they have a supermajority, but when it's something is that big, 3 votes can be tight,
Yeah.
especially when you have to bring people in. So that's when we are, or when Matt was able to negotiate for us. So it happens. The statewide officials, I don't have anything to do with any of them. I mean, seriously, um, I say nothing. Nancy Landry, the Secretary of State, is very responsive. I really like the job she's been doing, I have to say. She has pushed back
Mhm.
on some of the nonsense that she's been getting from the far right. She wants to do her job. They want to be able to redraw districts the second that the Supreme Court might come down with an
Mhm.
opinion. And she was very firm and said, if I don't have
Yeah.
maps by X date, I cannot do this. And so I appreciate her standing up for like her office.
I will give her credit on that. Because in 24 and this past year, I think she's drawn the line on how late change would be to be unfair, and I think that's been, yeah, I think that's been heartening because I think that there's a lot of Republican pressure to say it's never too late. It's never too late.
They don't understand it. And like technically could, I mean, you can always figure something out with enough money and
Hmm.
people, right?
Yeah.
But she knows the limits of that office. And I've worked with them on a few things, and it it's very some of some of what we do here is very frustrating to the Secretary of State in that office, like the sheer amount of elections
Oh yeah.
and change, and we all talk about changing it. And I've looked into it a few times, and it's like a headache of all the things you have to change. So I think she's done okay. I say the AG's office I've interacted with, but I don't regularly, right? I can't speak. I need some coffee. I don't regularly interact with them, but there's been a handful of things, legislative and non-legislative, that I've run through their office. I don't know the AG well, but a couple of her lawyers I know pretty well. And they are responsive when you need something or when you have a question or something like that. But I otherwise, most of us don't have a lot of interaction with the rest of the statewide officials. I know most of my colleagues aren't a fan of our treasurer right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
Lots of trauma there.
he has a very specific audience for a lot of his antics at the moment. Um,
The billboards with Trump are, I love the
I, I
trolling.
I love it. I do. We have one right here down the street. I see it and
Love the trolling.
I see it and I'm like, I, I wonder how this is gonna play.
It's a
I
real
am.
photo,
It
right?
is. It's very real. And for the longest, he did seem like he would be the Trump candidate. He did.
I'm a little I'm a little surprised about the Letlow thing. I don't quite get it.
I think his
I know he
people
didn't
told
want
him.
Cassidy.
I think his people told him that Letlow is more likely to win because I mean his people aren't. Yeah, I think his people told him that. I think Landry told him that.
Fleming's numbers are good.
They are. They.
Because
I think he
he's
could be one of
known in his part of the state.
the
Yeah.
MAGA movement is one of these where I think in this race, I don't think it's a given that Letlow wins. I think that there's, and it depends on how bad Fleming wants to go, but I think that Fleming could.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to kind of my last one, and it's a good segue. Republicans control state government, so they own the direction of the state largely from a policy perspective right now. When you look at Louisiana on insurance, healthcare, poverty, infrastructure, education, and quality of life, what do you think they most don't want voters connecting back to their own policies and their own choices?
I think anything healthcare related. I think this push to get people off Medicaid or to not give people health care, it's like mean. And I think the average person doesn't realize it affects their health care. It affects their ability to go to a hospital. It affects their ability to take their children to the doctor. I think if they realize, like, there's a lot of parts of the state where it takes an hour to get to a hospital. That is the fault of your elected officials for not working with Medicaid, for not working with the system we have, for not funding it. Like, we make those choices. There's no reason a hospital should be an hour away from you. I'm in New Orleans. I have like 10 around here. It's things like that that I think the average person doesn't make the connection.
Okay. Well,
And those are jobs. Your hospital closes, all the jobs go away.
You're right.
In your area, you got a school, a post office, and a hospital.
Or maybe a prison. Yeah, it kind of depends. Yeah, I know. Well, thank you, Representative Landry. I appreciate you making the time
You're
out to
welcome.
talk about the legislative session, and good luck.
All right, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.